Dear students, today we shall be discussing about the management of fish ponds for aquaculture, part 2, wherein we shall be discussing stocking and post-stocking management. We have discussed site selection for the construction of the fish ponds in lecture number 12. We have discussed pond construction for aquaculture in lecture number 20. And we have discussed management of fish ponds for aquaculture part 1, wherein we have discussed pre-stocking management in lecture number 32. Today we shall be discussing management of fish ponds for aquaculture with respect to stocking and post-stocking management. Before proceeding, it is my request to you all to like and subscribe my channel BioLearn. Now, what is this very stocking management? The important steps to be kept in mind while stocking the fish in a pond, we term this kind of management as a stocking management. That is, what are the criteria which we follow while stocking the fry or fingerling or any other fish in a pond? We call this management as a stocking management. Secondly, we should be ensuring that there should be the complete detoxification of the pesticide. Now, in the pre-management practice, we often apply the pesticides in the pond so that we can get rid of the carnivorous or unwanted fishes. But before stocking new fishes in a pond, we should ensure that it is completely detoxified. So whether it is a nursery pond, rearing pond, or stocking pond. So what should we do? That 1 or 2 days prior to the stocking, a hopper should be fixed. Hoppers should be fixed just like as shown here. And some of the stocking material should be put inside the hopper. And if there is absence of distress and mortality, even after 24 hours, we say that the pond has been completely detoxified and should be regarded as ready for stocking. So if there is no mortality or any untoward incident during the 24 hours after stocking in the hopper, or in case of the organisms or in case of the fishes which are put in the hopper, so that we can test whether it is detoxified or not. If they survive and there is no abnormal condition in them, then we say that the pond is ready for the stocking. Now, the stocking of the nursery ponds. What care we should take while stocking in the nursery ponds? In case of nursery pond, one thing is very much important, that the fry and the fingerlings or the larvae, they usually prefer to feed on the live feed. So we should ensure, mostly in the case of the carp spawn, which requires natural feed immediately after stocking, and hence it is essential to have the minimum plankton value of 30 to 40 milliliter per cubic meter. So there should be the plankton value of 30 to 40 milliliter per cubic meter in the case of stocking, and that too at a moderate rate, that is 1.5 to 2.5 million per hectare. And when the stocking rate is increased and when the stocking rate is higher, the rate should be increased accordingly. For example, if the stocking density is over 5 million per hectare, the plankton volume or plankton value should be 100 milliliter per cubic meter. And it depends that how much you are going to increase the stock or how much density you are going to increase. Self-produced or procured 3 to 4 days old spawn should be stocked in the morning at the rate of 4 to 6 million per hectare. If they are 3 to 4 days old, they can be stocked at the rate of 4 to 6 million per hectare. The stocking density must be according to the condition of the pond and the amount of the food organisms available. And the rate of the stocking in a well-prepared nursery pond with adequate fish food organisms can be as high as 10 million per hectare. We can increase the density up to 10 million 10 million per hectare. However, if the survival rate decreases with the increase in the stocking density, however, it has been noted that mostly the survival rate decreases with when we increase the stocking density. So the combined rearing of 2 or more species of spawn should not be done in the nursery ponds. Also, you have to keep in mind that when you go for the composite fish culture or polyculture, it is not necessary you are going to combine or you are going to rear 2 or more species of spawn in the nursery ponds. The ponds should be stocked after 3 days of the hatching when their size ranges from 0.6 to 0.75 centimeter. So stocking should be done when you have the size range of the larva from the 0.6 to 0.75 centimeter. And or you can also be having an idea if they are 500 numbers per ml. So the required number of the spawn are measured with the help of the metallic or the plastic sieve cups of known volume. So the spawn are reared in the nursery ponds up to fry stage for about 2 to 3 weeks when they usually attain the size of 2 to 3.5 centimeter. So they are stocked in the nursery ponds at the when they are 0.6 to 0.75 centimeter until they reach to the size of 2 to 3.5 centimeter, and their length should be 0.15 to 0.15 and weight should be about 0.75 gram. So this is the little bit idea that how you are going to stock the fishes in nursery ponds. So one more thing is that if you increase the stocking rate, the growth will be relatively slow. So that is one thing, that the density, the more the density is slower the growth. Now the stocking of the rearing ponds, how the rearing ponds are stocked. So I was telling you about the fry to fingerling stage is cultured in the rearing ponds where the fries are stocked at the rate of 0.25 to 0.30 million per hectare with a survival rate of 60 to 80 under proper pond conditions as revealed by various studies. Either monoculture or polyculture methods can be adopted for this rearing. In case of polyculture, the species combination and their ratio should be decided on the basis of their habitat, that is feeding, availability of the feed or other factors. Combination of too many species should be avoided as it invites excessive handling at the time of harvesting for species segregation. So in this very stage, it becomes very much difficult to handle and segregate the species. So in this very stage, the combination of too many species should be avoided. The fry are reared in the ponds for about 3 months when they usually attain 100 to 150 mm length or 15 to 40 gram in weight. 100 to 50 gram it means 10 to 15 centimeter in length. So for healthy fry rearing, it is recommended that the size of the fry at the time of stocking in the rearing pond should be as uniform as possible. This can be done by size grading at the time of the fry harvesting and nursery ponds, harvesting from the nursery ponds. So prior to the stocking, the rearing ponds, the pond water must have the plankton level of about 30 to 50 milliliter per cubic meter. And some of the possible combinations that are recommended for the culture, many studies suggest that the katla, rohu, mrigal and common carp, they should be stocked in a combination of or in the ratio of 3:4:1:3, and silver carp grass carp in the ratio of 1:1, and silver carp, grass carp, common carp in the ratio of 4:3:3. Or if you are going to combine katla, rohu, mrigal and grass carp, it should be in the ratio of 4:3:1:5. And if we are undertaking the ratio of silver carp, grass carp, common carp, rohu, it should be 3:1:1.5 is to 2.5 is to 3 ratio. That is recommended. Stocking in the case of grow out ponds. So when after the nursery ponds, in the grow out ponds, we should stock in a ratio which is recommended by various agencies and even different studies during the research. So availability of the weed in the pond decides the stocking density of the grass carp. So in the case of grass carp, it is the density of the weeds which decide that how much density of the grass carps should be in a pond. In the older ponds where the soft sediment layer of the pond bottom is usually very thick, the ratio of the bottom feeder, that is the common carp, should be kept at higher level. And likewise, the relative density of the column feeder, that is rohu, should be kept on the higher side in the deeper ponds than the shallower ponds. If the ponds are deeper, then the rohu, which is a column feeder, its density can be increased. Whereas the ponds showing consistently higher zooplankton population should have the higher ratio of these surface feeders. So in those very ponds where the zooplankton density is very high, we can increase this ratio of the surface feeders because the zooplanktons and the phytoplanktons, they are found probably and mostly on the surface. So after proper preparation, the pond should be stocked with 100 to 150 mm long fingerlings of the desired carp species. So in the case of fingerlings are not available, the pond can also be stocked with advanced fry or early fingerlings in absolutely predator-free ponds. The stocking rate depends primarily upon the volume of the water and on the oxygen balance of the pond. The quality of the available natural fish food in the pond and the capacity of the farmer to provide supplementary feed are also the matters of the consideration. And usually a pond having the average water depth of 1.5 to 2.5 meter should be stocked at the rate of 5,000 fingerlings per hectare. So we have also the study which show that the different species combination in the stocking rates for the composite fish culture. If we are taking the three species combination, then we can take Katla 40:30:30. And if we are taking the four species combination, then we can take 30 to 40 surface feeder, 20 to 30 column feeder, and 15 to 20 bottom feeder, that is mrigal. If we are taking the six species combinations, then 10 to 15 surface feeders, that is the Katla, and silver carp 20 to 30, which is also a surface feeder. Rohu 15 to 30, which is also a column feeder, and mrigal, if you are taking mrigal, it should be 15 to 20, and common carp, it should be 20 to 25, and if we are taking along with them some macrophyte feeders such as grass carp, we can take them 5 to 15. So this is the recommended combination of the different species for the grow out or stocking ponds. Now, what is the method of the stocking now? How the fishes are stocked? The stocking of the spawn, fry and fingerlings should be done very carefully to avoid any post-stocking mortality due to shock or the infections. Secondly, to minimize post-stocking mortality, the fry fingerlings should be slowly and gradually acclimatized to the temperature and quality of the water in the stocking ponds. That is, they should be made aware that which kind of the water they are going to be dipped in by using again and again that very water of the pond before putting them in the pond. So to do so, what we do, we open the mouth of the seed transport bag or container and gradually add the pond water in phases. And after 15 to 20 minutes, slowly we dip and tilt the bag container in the pond so that the spawn, fry or fingerlings are free to swim out. So in this way they come to know, it is not like a shock for them that in what kind of environment they are going or what is the physiochemical parameters of the water. So firstly we mix the pond water in that very bag or the container in which they are present, and we keep them in that very water for 15 to 20 minutes, and then we put or dip that very bag in the pond so that the fry and fingerlings, they are released. The stocking should be preferably done in the cool evening hours. So evening hours are preferred, and apply prophylactic treatment to seed prior to their release so as to avoid any post-stocking infection. So prophylactic treatment, that is they should be dipped, they should be given a dip in any kind of the disinfectant before releasing in the pond so that any kind of the post-stocking complication be avoided. Then the post-stocking management. This was all about the stocking management. Now what are the things we have to keep in mind after stocking? Now we have stocked, we have put the fish in the pond, we have released the fish in the pond. Now what are the different measures we have to keep in mind? What are the measures we have to keep in mind? So the post-stocking management involves harnessing the pond productivity in the form of natural food, maintenance of pond environment, congenial to the cultivated fish, and the fish husbandry, mainly feeding and the health care. Manuring and fertilizing is also another important factor which is required time and again. That is, we have to manure and fertilize the pond time and again so that there is the growth of the natural fish food. So besides application of the high dose of the basal manuring, fertilizing before the stocking, or regular addition of the manure or fertilizer in the small quantities is required in order to ensure the tempted supply of the natural fish food. So pond manuring or fertilizing should be done monthly or fortnight at the regular intervals, and the quantities should be split in doses. So these are the pictures showing that how these if there is a large pond, how this fertilization or the manuring of the pond is done. Then supplementary feeding. Feeding is one of the important aspects in the post-stocking management practice. The need for the supplementary feeding in the aquaculture depends upon the intensity of the fish culture. So the number one, it is the intensity, that what kind of fish culture you are undergoing, whether it is intensive, whether it is semi-intensive, or it is extensive. So the need for the supplementary feeding depends upon what kind of culture one is undertaking. After a certain level of the fish biomass increase, the available natural food organisms in pond, and if that very organisms they are not sufficient to support the further growth of the fish, we need the supplementary fish feeding. Oil cakes or the rice cakes, rice bran, wheat bran, it is wheat brans, grain fodders, and other agricultural byproducts and available or whatever is available from the slaughterhouses as their byproduct, such as blood, rumen, or the viscera, that can be utilized as the fish feed ingredient. The required can either be the farm made or can be produced from the feed manufacturers. Feeding is the most expensive operation in the aquaculture, so care has to be taken to supply the required quantity and quality of the feed to the species which are being cultured. So under feeding, it or you can say underfeeding. That is, if there is less feeding, that is, you are not going to supply the sufficient required amount of the nutrients to the fish, it results in the poor growth of the fishes. Whereas if you supply more feed, that is overfeeding, it will increase in the cost of the feeding. Hence, feeding assumes the prime importance in the improving the yield and the profitability of the aquaculture. The required quantity of the feed has to be estimated based on the biomass available, and the feed has to be given in turns or in intervals based upon the species being cultured. Now, one of the important aspects is also the storage of the feed, because many times the aquaculturists or the fish farmers, they ruin their feed by not storing them properly, and that is very much you can say unprofitable for them. They have the greater loss of the money in terms when they lose feed by their when these feeds perish by not having the proper storage. This price of the feed stuff shows seasonal variation. So therefore it is better buy a larger quantity, to buy a larger quantity when the prevalent price is low. So we should buy the a larger quantity. If the prices are low, we should buy the larger quantity. And however, without proper storage, the nutrient values can deteriorate rapidly. So if there is no proper storage, the nutrient values deteriorate. It decomposed fungal infection in the feed must not be, or the decomposed or the fungus infected feed, that should not be given to the fish. And the feed ingredients should be stored in places which are dry and well ventilated. Feed should be stored always 10 to 15 centimeter above the floor level, so that the bags may not get the moisture from the soil or the, you can say, floor. Another important aspect in the post-stocking management is regular fish sampling. So we should ensure that the fish in the pond, they are in healthy condition. So in a proper fish production management system, periodic sampling at the regular interval is an important with a view to check the health condition of the fish. So we should be able to know what is the health condition of the fish, or we can monitor the growth rate of the fish by, you can say, by taking the growth and the length measurements, calculating the quantity of the supplementary feed to be applied, so that we can know how much feed is to be supplied in accordance with the increasing biomass of the fish. So if the fish is growing rapidly, so we should also increase the quantity of the feed to be given to the fish, because it is dependent on the fish biomass. We calculate the feed depending upon the fish biomass. It is at the rate of 2 to 3 are as recommended in case of the different species of the fish. For example, in the case of carps, it is mostly recommended that in some carps it is 2 to 3% of their body weight. So estimating survival and mortality of the fish in the pond. So the studies are also done, or the regular monitoring of the, you can say, having an eye or vigil on the survival and the mortality, that it plays an also important role. Periodic sampling of the fish should be done at least once in a month. Complete periodic monitoring should be done at least once in a month. And each sampling, that is 10 to 20 fish of every species, should be taken for the growth management. For sampling, the complete netting of the pond by the seine net is better, so that you can have the samples from all over the pond. It is not that some of the diseased fish, they are living in the corner of the pond, you are going to get hold of only of them, and you will say that all your pond is, you can say, destroyed. So the sampling should be done, complete netting and the sampling should be done. So however, the partial netting of the pond also serves the purpose of the sampling. During each sampling, data relating to the fish health and the growth rate has to be properly recorded. Any undesirable fish, if somehow gets into the pond, it should be immediately removed and if found in the sample netting. In case of some fish exhibit the symptoms of any disease or distress, suitable curative measures should be taken immediately. However, prophylactic treatment measures such as giving the fish a dip in the potassium permanganate at the rate of 250 to 500 parts per million per minute should be strictly followed before releasing the fish back into the pond, so as to avoid the chances of the infection to the other fishes or the infection during the handling. Now, one of the last important aspect in the stocking management is the harvesting of the fish. Harvesting of the fish means complete removal of the fish from the pond at the end of the production. So a single stocking and a single harvesting are common practice in existence. That is, once and for all, the complete pond is evacuated, the pond is completely emptied. So however, the technique of the partial harvesting, so there is one more term, that is partial harvesting, that is also done, and the restocking is now being practiced and has been found to yield better results. And many times what is done, that half of the pond is harvested and it is restocked again, so as to yield the better results in terms of the fish production per unit area. Bigger size fishes should be harvested and sold in batches, and the pond should be immediately restocked with the same number of the fishes or of the same species. Now, what are the benefits of I was telling you about the partial harvesting and the stocking rate. So what is the benefit of the partial harvesting? Many times it is suggested that we should go for the partial harvesting, and we should restock the pond with the same kind of the stock and the same number. So benefits of the partial harvesting in the stocking rate: it allows the smaller fish to grow faster, it increases the carrying capacity of the pond, and thus the total production become higher per unit area. Farmers earn some cash return from the pond within a short period of time, that is 4 to 5 months. This encourages them to reinvest the money in improving the production capacity. So all the trophic and the special niches of the pond are fully utilized throughout the culture period, maximizing the production. Harvesting of the fish is related to the biological productivity and carrying capacity of the pond when the pond is overcrowded and the productivity of the pond cannot support the further growth of the fish biomass. In the case of rearing pond, relatively bigger sized fishes must be harvested in order to leave the available space and the food for the smaller fish to grow further. Thus, partial or the total harvesting of the fish can be done at any time when the carrying capacity of the pond is saturated or when a farmer deems so. Harvesting should be done by the seine net, preferably in the morning when the pond environment conditions remain good. During harvesting, marketable fish should be sorted out first, and then small size fish should be returned to the pond. The total operation should be done as possible so that the fishes returned back to the pond are not stressed. So this is all for the stocking management of the fish ponds. So this was all for today. Hope you enjoyed the lecture, and you should undergo my lecture number 12, 20, 32 to understand this very whole topic in a better way. Thank you very much. Thank you for your patience.